Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com.
Welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast. I'm your host, Carolyn Woodard, and today I'm really excited to welcome my friend Ryan Ozimek to talk about a conference that he just attended, where they talked about the future of nonprofit IT technology from Microsoft. First, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Ryan Ozimek from Soapbox Engage. We've been around for 24 years, and I've at least been around for 24 years because I was one of the co-founders of the business. And we've been focusing on serving small and mid-sized nonprofit organizations through the last quarter century, which is just wild to say. But Carolyn, I remember in our early days, we were literally like on our hands and knees, like wiring Ethernet cable to connect organizations to get onto the internet, which was going to be a thing. We promised them that once they got connected, the world would change for them. And it is wild. I think we've gone from that to where we are today. But yeah, and I'm out here in the San Francisco Bay Area now. Our company is headquartered in DC, but I've recently, my wife and I recently had a little kiddo, so we want to be closer to family. So we're out in the San Francisco Bay Area now.
Well, thank you so much for joining me from the West Coast. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the Microsoft Global Nonprofit Leaders Summit. So this is the second year of this meetup of people who are working in nonprofit IT and working on, some of these big ideas and what Microsoft provides to nonprofits. So do you have some impressions for us from that conference?
Yeah, so this is their second year of doing it. And I remember the first year when they reached out to me and they said, hey, we're going to put on an event and we think it's going to be a thing that nonprofit leaders will go to. Global is global, not galactic. I can't remember what it is, but it's really big, like really, really big focus. And I said, that sounds great. Let me know if it really happens. And then I showed up on the first day last year, assuming that it's going to be like me and like 50 Microsoft friends, and that was about it. And instead, it was more than 1,000 individuals from different organizations, and we're all really interested in, what is Microsoft and what are we facing as leaders in nonprofit technology. So I was pretty surprised and really, really happy on that first year. So that made a big impression right away. And to see Microsoft's president come out and speak, to have one of their VPs of marketing come out to speak, and to be really thoughtful, not just say, here's technology and we're throwing it at nonprofits. It was more about, here's technology and here's how organizations can use it to be really successful. And here's how we want to work alongside you. I thought that was really appealing given what we're seeing in, the broader tech ecosystem. So this year I was hoping to see more of the same. And I think I got a lot of that. My biggest impressions from it were the artificial intelligence world is changing so quickly that I swear a lot of the content was based on things that had been made 4 months prior, like really, really quick in Microsoft and technology terms. And it made me think, wow, we are about to we are already just barreling down the road of huge changes happening in technology and how our nonprofit organizations can use that technology. And I walked away from the conference saying, all right, last year announcements were being made, and this year was more of the, it's really happening, and it's happening faster than we thought.
So do you have one or two of those tools or products that you want to tell us about? And also, I guess I have a follow-up question of, you talked a little bit about like the philosophy that Microsoft wants to work alongside nonprofits. So what does that look like?
Yeah. So I think one of the things it's interesting right now in the Microsoft space. So Microsoft has let's call it a division, a group, a team within Microsoft called Microsoft Tech for Social Impact, which many of your listeners may already know about. But for those that don't, it is really focused not on just saying, how do we give existing technology to nonprofits, but how can we both work alongside organizations to create the technology, and how can Microsoft create that technology on their own, specifically purpose-built for nonprofit organizations. During the last year, Microsoft has taken some significant steps back from that last focus of building purpose-built tools for the nonprofit community. And so it was interesting to see what was going to happen at this event that had a whole bunch of nonprofit leaders to determine or to hear what they were going to say. And I think one of the things that, struck me was they've gone back to the approach that they had when I was first deeply engaged with them about 5 years ago, which was, what if we could seed a bunch of fertile land to help a number of different solutions that could be purpose-built by the community for the nonprofit sector. They're doing this with fundraising and engagement. They're probably doing this on their volunteer side. They're probably doing this in a number of other areas as well too. They've got some training, Microsoft Community Training, and some other services and tools that they've been building. And my lessons learned from the last year and a half have really been, they're going to step back into having Microsoft partners lead on those efforts. They're going to essentially help and hope that the community will rally itself together to provide solutions to each other that could be more focused for specific sub verticals within the nonprofit space. And I think that they just looked at, what's selling. Like they used to say, like, we're selling what's on the truck. Like, what's on the truck is a whole bunch of AI stuff, like just so much AI stuff that's built into Office and their whole productivity suite and Teams and Biz apps. It's everywhere. And I think that their focus is probably rightly so, 100% focused on what do we need to do to scale that quickly? And then how can nonprofits take the most advantage of that?
That makes sense. I mean, that's been my impression interacting with Microsoft people over the years. Um, and you see it that it's like it's a commercial product that's wildly successful. And then how can nonprofits use that? Instead of like, let's build something for nonprofits that does exactly what they need. And it's not like we're complaining, like it does what most nonprofits need, a lot of what we need, right? But sometimes when you interact with the Microsoft people who have been like assigned to the nonprofit world, they don't know anything about nonprofits. Sometimes they've just like come straight out of the business and they have a lot of misconceptions or assumptions about what we would need or how their products would work for us. So it's good to hear you say that that model of like maybe pushing it out to the community to come back with, well, here are the things that we need, or use this platform to build this thing. Can you help market it and get it to more nonprofits? That makes a lot of sense.
And I think one thing that's going to be interesting is right now, just like when we were first wiring Ethernet cables to get nonprofits online, we're back at a global starting point for a lot of folks, like 98% of the world, and saying like, here's this AI thing. 4 months ago, like we revolutionized AI, like everybody's starting from scratch. And so it is kind of an interesting time because rather than saying, here's a 15-year build cycle of CRM solutions, and we're going to apply that to nonprofits. And here's 10 years of content management systems that we're going to apply to nonprofits. Now it's like, wow, businesses and nonprofits alike, universities, synagogues, like everybody in between is trying to figure out what this new technology is going to be. So we're all kind of at those early starting line discussions, which means organizations have a unique opportunity to be at the table when we're building these tools, both from like the ethics as well as the technology, as well as like what's the purpose of these tools and how we're going to use them. So a lot of the things that I heard at the event were, wow, that's really cool. That's really interesting. How are we going to apply this to our organizations in our community? And everybody left with a lot more questions they had, not in a bad way, but in a positive way. Like, wow, this feels like 1999 all over again. This is going from like dial-up modem to like getting on the high-speed internet, and like, what is that change going to be? And I feel like that makes it an exciting opportunity.
I wonder about that too, because that time period also was like, what was the
Right.
pet.com
Pets.com.
bust as well, where
Right.
there was that period where they're like, just be online and you'll be successful. And it's like, well, no, you actually have to do something, provide a product, provide a service, have a mission, and your online presence will help you reach people with that mission, but you can't just have a website and, well, I guess you could make $1 million overnight, but then it went away pretty quickly.
Well, and one of the things that we learned, Soapbox Engage, our corporate name is actually PickNet. And when we started PickNet, we actually got it together as an idea back in 1999. And I like to say we started the company in the midst of a global recession at the dot-com busts peak busting period, and we were serving a sector that had almost no money to invest in the type of work that we were doing. And the benefit of that back then was it meant we had to be really scrappy. Like in the DNA of our business is like be scrappy, be agile. If you're choosing to serve nonprofits with technology, know that technology is changing, so you need to always be ready to change. I feel like we're back at that stage, and not necessarily as us as a business, but as a community, as a sector. It's time to like really be agile again, because things are going to just change a lot. And I think as we're considering what those next steps need to be, I think building in some sort of risk volatility measures that you can have as a leader in your organization to be prepared for the speed bumps coming up or the big changes happening, either through political changes or technology changes or social changes. Like we're undergoing some major shifts right now. And it doesn't mean step back. It probably means lean in on where you feel most comfortable in taking those early next steps. And you're right, like we don't want to see the next Webvan, the next pets.com in our nonprofit space. So what can we be doing to learn together? What's the kind of community gatherings we can have to help make that happen? I do feel like the Microsoft Global Nonprofit Leader Summit was a great way to bring those folks together.
It's an interesting analogy too, because, and I'm sure, like working as long as you have in the nonprofit IT sector, there were many nonprofits, maybe a majority in that 1999 period, who just said, I'm not going to have a website. People have been calling, I have a brochure. People have been calling me. I go to neighborhood events and I have a business card. Like, I don't really need a website. I don't need to have my donation page online. I have my major donors, et cetera. And as the technology matured and we all changed how we got our information and how we donated and how we found out about organizations that we wanted to support, nonprofits came along, right? They built a website, they did donations. They changed how they were. Some of them went viral for, Ice Bucket Challenge or what have you. So they could really see the potential. But there's some nonprofits that need to see somebody else do it first, and then they'll go ahead and do it. And I feel like AI tools may be a similar situation
Yeah.
right now, where as those tools develop and we have these convenings where nonprofits can learn from each other what's working and what they're using, more of them will come online. Do you feel like that's?
I do. And one of the things I'm reminding myself of from like way back in the website days, it was, how flashy and how pretty is your homepage? And when you have the little mailbox icon that has the mailbox flapper going in and out, like, and it was spun around with a letter E at the bottom of the page, like that was really cool. You really needed to focus on that. And I think that the challenge that some of the early entrants had back then was they were very focused on some of these things that didn't actually convert new donors, didn't actually like engage their organization to do more with their mission. It was just trying to keep up with things. I wonder if we're in a different state right now because we've had, 2 decades of digital technology revolution that's happened, and the latest generation of young people that are coming out of college to work at organizations, like they are ready to rock and roll. Like they know the stuff better than the folks that were there, years before them, folks like you and I. So I wonder if like things are both moving faster, and on the consumer side, the expectations is just so much higher now that what we're hearing oftentimes is that somebody on the board of directors of an organization is saying like, I want to pay this through my donor advised fund, and I want it to be 3 clicks away. Somebody else wants to pay with Venmo because their teenage kid is doing a peer-to-peer fundraising challenge, and all of her friends are paying with Venmo. So those are some of the new agents of push that we're seeing that really are, they're kind of demand driven on the organizations rather than like, let's just make a spinny E icon on the homepage of our flashy website and like call it a win. So I think that It feels like it's different this time, and AI, I'm hoping will help facilitate that more too.
Yeah, the difference in technology for appearances versus technology to be more efficient, be more productive, and those opportunities that we don't even know yet that AI is going to pull out for us of what if we did it this way? Do you remember back in the day, there were programs to match up the CEO with like a young junior staffer who knew what Facebook was? Like you sit
Yes.
with the CEO. They were like kind of peer learning, but like, you would get a mentor if you were a young person, and the CEO would like, what is this Facebook? You know?
Absolutely.
Do you see that happening now too? Because I was thinking about what you said about the younger people. I was at a conference maybe last year, and I was at a table. We're talking about AI tools and AI policy at
Mm.
nonprofits. And an older gentleman said, "Well, we just don't let anyone use it. That's our policy." And I said, okay, but are you never planning to hire anyone under 30 ever again? Because I guarantee you, every college kid right now is writing with AI,
Yeah.
and other things. They're used to doing other things with AI. So, yeah, I'm just wondering about those generational divides. Was there anything
Yeah.
at the conference with Microsoft that kind of spoke to that of like, how do nonprofits get up to speed quickly? Because you have people at your nonprofits who can see the opportunities. Like if I could have AI search this file and find these things, like
Right.
I'd be cooking with gas, on our
Right.
mission. So how do you make those things happen?
I think one of the other things that's different to me is that when we all got connected to the internet and we were all building websites for the first time, like everything felt really new and really different. And one of the things that was really focused on, I think really quite eloquently by Microsoft at this event, it was very much an AI focused event. And because they kept on saying Copilot, and because they kept on talking about agents, and because they said, like, let's help you do what you already do better, faster, more efficient, more affordably, it felt less about some big generational change and divide. And it's more like, do you love your inbox but hate all your messages? Do you love being able to like move really quickly through building presentations but hate making them like from scratch? Like, guess what? Like we've got the new and improved technology. And so it was more about layering in well, as I would say, a co-pilot that's going to help you do the things you're already doing, but better, faster, more affordably. And so it's felt, at least the way that Microsoft has been kind of presenting it to the nonprofit leaders, more about enhancing the way that folks are doing things that feels really natural. If you're looking for like, what was the last conversation that Ryan and Carolyn had about this? Like, just go search everything you know about me in my Microsoft environment and tell me what you find. What are the top 10 things we've talked about in the past? Like, that would be a huge struggle to do. But now people just know that they intuitively they would love just to ask some super intelligent power that question and just easily get those answers back. So it almost feels like rather than having to learn a tool to use it most effectively to do something, the nice on ramp to this is just talk to the tool the way you would talk to a friend or somebody, a colleague at your organization, to ask them a question, and it will surface relevant things in a spooky, pretty decently accurate way. Like at least that's what we were seeing at the event, and that's what we were testing out ourselves. So it makes me feel like the generational gaps and the on ramps, the gaps will be narrower, the on ramps will be smoother, and that's feels like that's a starting point. Like I think that things are going to be more interesting and more challenging as what happens after that. But in terms of productivity, I think the promise of what Microsoft's been doing with its Copilot and the agents that they're now building out is just that. Let's make this an easy on ramp for folks. And I think that people were pretty blown away by what they were able to see.
Wow, that's good to hear. Um, kind of segue from that, is there anything after hearing all of these kind of advanced views of what's coming at us? Do you have any advice for what nonprofits should be doing to prepare at this moment for this moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that there's probably a lot of smarter people that have built like full portfolios about training and preparedness for this. But I think one of the things, the two key things I would say, um, is one, as I've always said, like technology is not a panacea. Like let's think about like what it is, what problems in the world are we trying to solve, and then find the right tools to solve them. Like so often I see new technology comes out, organizations rush to adopt the technology to then find the problems to solve with. It's like, no, 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 let's work the other way. Let's work the other way around. Like, you know, we don't need AI to do certain things. Like we might need AI to do something. So one is like, let's stay focused on the problems that we're trying to solve and where we feel technology like AI could be a good fit. Like let's approach it that way rather than the other way around, which could just burn too much valuable time and money from an organization. And then second, what I was talking about earlier is being prepared to be more agile and more nimble than ever before. If Microsoft is telling us that like the entire AI world for them is changing in 4-month increment periods, like there's no way that the average organization out there that's just trying to like serve a social mission and use technology to do that is ever going to be able to keep up with this. So just being nimble, being able to make small bets in small places to test things out in a lightweight way and not worry about chasing like what's the homepage spinny icon look like on your website and say, let's get focused on what the technology can do to solve specific problems right in front of us. Those would be my two top things I would consider. And then maybe a third thing, go talk to your favorite AI agent about what you think technology should be doing for your organization. Because I think you'll be surprised. One of the things I've learned a lot is if you ask these AI systems, what are the types of questions I should be asking you to solve a particular problem? It's surprisingly good, at least helping you build that framework. So there's a 2.5 items there.
Well, and that's reassuring because I think one thing that nonprofits that I've worked with and for have been pretty good at is knowing their mission really deeply, like front, back, left, right, up, down, inside out. They know what they're trying to do in their community or, wherever they're working. And I think most people who work for nonprofits are there because they believe in the mission and they also have that expertise or experience in what the nonprofit is trying to do. So being able to give staff those tools to turn that deep experience and knowledge into action, like being able to do the things that they know they want to try and do better. I think that's interesting to think about in terms of like tech savviness of nonprofits, which is something, we talk a lot about. How
Right.
ready are you for change? How
Right.
mature are you? How good are you at strategic planning around technology? Or is it something you just say, oh, my IT director does that. I don't know what I don't know what our tech
Thanks.
plan is. I don't know what our policies are, you know. So maybe
You know,
maybe those are things you can ask your AI agent, like what policy
right.
I need for AI.
One of the things that I think was a big takeaway that um, was said at the end of a number of the different presentations was last year, Microsoft focused on Copilot, your friendly navigator guiding you through artificial intelligence. And then this year, they talked about Copilot, and behind Copilot are any number of agents. I think of those like almost like microservices from the IT side that are specialized services to do very purpose-built things. And I think what the underlying message there was is that there's going to be labor force changes, especially at organizations where the cost of having a certain number of people on staff like is oftentimes running right up against the revenue the organization is making, and that is often making it more difficult for organizations to achieve the mission they're trying to achieve. And Microsoft's takeaway was, we're, we should be less worried about people losing their jobs and more worried about those people being able to be more effective and doing the things that's necessary for the mission of the organization. And that was kind of the promise of like productivity tools to begin with. But it'll be really interesting to see like, well, what happens if we move away from just like making the individuals at an organization more effective and productive, and instead like augmenting them with more artificial intelligent agents that are just doing the things. Like we're talking about like asking it questions and it coming back and helping you reason and being your co-pilot. Well, what happens when it just starts doing the things, whatever those micro systems or solutions are? So maybe one last item for listeners would be, what are those types of things where you're like, nobody at our organization should be spending any more time in coming years doing any of X type of work? Like if there was any microservice that we could just train enough to feel 95%, 90% confident that it was doing a good job, like what are those things? Like get that list ready to go, because I feel like that's coming really, really quick.
Oh my gosh. I was at a nonprofit way back in the day where their year-end fundraising, first it was a letter, then it became an email. It literally took a team of 5 or 6 people 4 or 5 months to every year to put that fundraising email together. And so things like that, like you could see. But I wonder too about the employment issue though, because as you said, like it is often like, what money do you have coming in? What are you paying out in your payroll? But I also feel like the nonprofit sector often is in this world where if the person could be more productive, like you have people, it's like a typing pool or something back in the day, right? You have people that, yeah, they're spending those 5 months on the fundraising appeal. If that only took them a week, they would, the nonprofit would probably use that other four, 4 months and 3 weeks for them to be doing different things for the nonprofit to reach their mission and to achieve their goals, right?
Yes. Yes.
So in some ways, when you add in the artificial intelligence doing the busy work, then at a lot of nonprofits, I think the people are free to use the rest of their time to think more deeply about things, take more opportunities, go in different directions, like understand more what their nonprofit is doing in a way that I feel like for profit would just fire those people, right? I could do it. I have a chat bot now that answers the phone. Like I don't need phone answers,
Right.
whereas I feel like I'm hopeful
Right.
that a lot of the nonprofits that we deal with and our clients, those, they have smart people working there who are like, why does it take half my day to answer this inquiry, or whatever it is?
I also think we've made choices, at least in the United States. We've made choices as a society over the course of the last couple decades to have our government and government services do less and put more of that burden onto the social services sector. And going into 2025, like that seems to be happening even faster. So what I need to make sure is that every organization that I get a chance to touch has whatever tools necessary to make every one of their team members more productive, while also just recognizing like there's a lot of emotions going on, there's a lot of pressure going on, there's a lot of individuals that are hurting in different ways. And we want to be able to have like strike that right balance of like, let's achieve our missions more effectively and faster because the world needs us more than ever before. Oh, and by the way, like the world is a really crazy place right now. So like we know you're bringing home a lot of stress and we need you more than ever before. So I think we need game-changing catalysts like AI to help us get there. Because that's where we're at right now in society. So I may not agree with where we're heading, like from a from a policy perspective, let's say the United States, but I do think that like what we have in front of us requires, the social sector to really be able to step up and take on the challenge. And I think we're prepared and ready to do that. Let's just give the best people in the country the best tools they need to be as successful as possible, because we're going to need them more than ever.
Yeah, those needs aren't going away. There will be more needs. Brian, thank you so, so much for your time today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and catching us up on what the Microsoft Global Leaders Summit covered and the AI that is barreling at us hundreds of miles an hour.
Yes, a pleasure as always. And I have a feeling there's going to be lots of changes coming in the future. So excited to see where we're all heading together.
Yeah, well, we'll check back in with you. I would love that.
Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com, so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.